Hello, and welcome to another podcast of the Unscripted Pharmacists. I'm joined once again with Lenora Casey, and today we're going to be talking about the ketogenic diet. It's just some basics, but a lot of this is based off of some amazing pioneers, and they wrote a book called The Art and Science of Low Carb Living. And let's see how this goes.
This is the Unscripted Pharmacist with Kyle Rootsaert, Doctor of Pharmacy, and Board Certified in Advanced Diabetes Management, and Lenora Casey, Oncology Certified Registered Nurse. Because each person is unique, consider this as medical information, not medical advice. See your physician regarding what might be best for you.
Awesome.
Hey.
This is fun.
Another podcast.
And I love how you've marked the heck out of your book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine is in storage somewhere, but this is, I actually have an old picture of me on the fridge with that book. And I want to say it's probably from like 2015.
Yeah, because it was published in 2011.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the copyright's 2011.
Yeah, that is like the Bible of the ketogenic diet, because really these are the founders of Virta Health.
Yes.
Jeff Volek and Steve Phinney.
Dr. Phinney.
Yeah,
both of them are, one's a PhD and one's an MD.
Yeah, well, Phinney is both an MD and a PhD.
Yeah.
And Jeff Volek, I think he was an RD and now PhD. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing pioneers. A lot of quotes.
Yeah.
I find myself using their quotes all the time. So they're amazing.
Low carb, high fat.
LCHF. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the day, it was trying to preach either LCHF and or what you're doing was intermittent fasting and prolonged fasting, the Jason Fung fasting method.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, those are incredibly powerful, but it still comes to the same endpoint, which is ketosis, right? This is all about ketosis, the ketogenic lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah. It's been, unfortunately, the difficulty with all of this is trying to rewrite what we understand of ketones.
Yes.
And I've done this as well. I walk up to a doctor, and one of them, this was an orthopedic surgeon, and I said, hey, you should think about the ketogenic lifestyle. This will really help you lose some weight. And he's like, oh, ketones. Oh, that's DKA. That's diabetic ketoacidosis.
No, but you have to be like, what, a type 1?
Right, right. So from a safety perspective, totally wrong, right? This is incredibly safe. You could never, as a non-type 1 diabetic, actually ever get DKA unless you're on one other medication. And this is why, as a pharmacist, I don't like medications. And I've seen a couple of these in our ICU, and that is a certain medication called SGLT2s. I know this is a tangent, but I've seen it. So when we start messing with, natural biological processes, when we get into trouble, right? So if you don't have any insulin, type 1 diabetic, you need some basal insulin to keep you out of DKA. So what happens in DKA? I guess we should talk about that.
Oh my God. Okay.
Is that a crazy topic? Well, I don't know. I mean, your ketones get so high because you don't have enough insulin to put glucose into the cell. So the cells have no other source of energy to burn other than fat. And so one of the byproducts of fat is ketones. Right? So if you have a normal functioning pancreas, even if you're type 2 and you think your pancreas is dead, most likely it's not.
There's some function. I mean, that's why they're type 2. Type 1 means you're not producing any insulin.
Right. So in type 2, you make some. Absolutely. And if not, you're injecting yourself with insulin, it's probably more likely to do with a fatty pancreas, or your insulin resistance is so high that you need a lot of insulin to try to overcome that resistance.
Yeah. But then, then the insulin resistance comes in when you talk about that.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't matter how much insulin you're shooting into yourself.
Right.
There is a stop. It's like the cells are like, no, we're done.
There's nothing wrong with the lock and key, right? If we if insulin is the key, right, that opens up the lock, that's like, these insulin receptors that we talk about. If there's nothing wrong with the lock and key, it's what's going on inside the cell. Right? There's a mechanism that allows the glucose to then be engulfed and taken into the cell.
Right.
But so you have two types of insulin resistance. You have an overreaction, a hyper response, or you have an under response.
Okay.
Right? And so in the case of insulin resistance, the insulin isn't enough to overcompensate for the fact that the glucose isn't being absorbed, and you have like a down regulation in certain cells, in particular, say fat cells.
Okay.
Fat cells aren't working. They're not taking in the glucose, and instead they're actually leaking fat into the bloodstream. But
that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, it's a totally. Okay. All right, you had tons of questions from reading this book, but LCHF.
Right. Okay. So, they pretty much start laying it out at the beginning. Right. What does low carbohydrate mean?
Low carb.
Right. So
high fat.
Right. It's low carb, high fat.
LCHF. Exactly. And there's so many different ways to achieve that.
Yes. And so their recommendations were, at the beginning, especially when I was watching them on YouTube, was 20, 50, and 90. So that was the carbs per grams. So 20 grams, 50 grams, 90 grams. And they were talking about, that's total carbs. And then they were talking about carbs minus fiber.
The net carbs.
Yes. Yeah. And so, where do you think, this is just informational, but where do you think people should keep their carbs at?
I think that's kind of dependent on where they are when we first start. So this is from my own personal experience with patients. I say, step one, just count your carbs. How much you taking in a day? Look at your wrappers. Look at all that. Net or otherwise, right?
Just start tracking all of your meals, trying to figure out, okay, what am I eating?
Right. And don't waste your time on calories. Oh my gosh, that's so overwhelming. I don't count calories.
Okay.
Homo sapiens don't need to count calories. We don't need to weigh stuff. We don't need to figure out how many calories did I take in, how many...
Well, you also have to figure that out because per serving, you got to figure out your carbs. So you kind of have to. Trust me, because I've done all of this. I got the scales. I got the measuring. Oh no, I've become crazy.
Yeah. So it's easy to get a little OCD about food.
Yes, but also I had to do this because, my husband, we've just totally, at the beginning, we weighed everything, we tracked everything, we used MyFitnessPal, we put everything in. Anything that went in your mouth, you weighed it and figured out what it was, was it in their database, and then figured out what's the carbs, what's the fat, what's the protein.
And how did that serve you?
It actually showed me my diet was awful. At the beginning, okay?
All right.
Because
based on calories or based on...
No, on carbs, because I was, at that time, a vegetarian and / vegan. So, I was anyway, eating more pastas, breads, rice, beans.
Low-calorie stuff.
Yeah.
Those are low calories. Carbs are way low in calories.
So, but also I measured everything out I measured everything, put it all.
That sounds like work.
It was a lot of work. It was a full-time job.
Just eating? And you should be just enjoying food and just living life.
But the thing is that I'd prep on Sundays. So I'd prep and weigh everything out and figure out, and my carbs were very high. 150, 200, 250. But I was also prepping everything and cooking at home.
So you were based on a 2,500 calorie diet.
Actually, it was
150, more like 600.
It was more like 1,200 because at that time I was
1,200.
Oh yeah, I cut my calories.
So you were at 50%. of your calories was coming from carbohydrates.
Oh,
Sounds like the
easily.
food pyramid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was maybe.
Because the food pyramid is like 50 to 65%.
But I wasn't having any type of meat. No meat, no fish, eggs, cheese, and the rest, carbs, vegetables, whatever.
How were the bowels?
Actually, they were not bad.
Oh, you're lucky.
Well, it's because
That would kill me.
Okay, so my problem is when I stop roughage, I stop pooping.
So constipation.
Yes.
From no
I
fiber.
have iron gut. You could try. The only thing that works is like go lightly.
Go lightly is like a
Is
clean
an
out.
electrolyte clean out for-
it's
right.
pre-colonoscopy.
Yeah. This is probably TMI for everyone,
but you get
this
to go
is-
home with this
right.
giant jug
Right.
that you get to
right.
finish.
Yeah. But there's the other one now
Wonderful.
that they do that's a huge electrolyte one, and it works really well for
Yeah.
me. But it's just that I have to take mag and I have to do
Mexican.
and I have
Right.
to eat a lot of
Docalax
fiber.
times, yeah.
Yeah. No, I
You
stopped
had
the
to do that?
Docalax, but I did the Inuit, and which is a powder that you put in there.
Inuit powder.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
It's
That makes no sense. An Inuit powder. What is it?
Maybe
is it
I'm
like just
saying
pure
it wrong.
fat?
No, it's just fiber or whatever it is, but it works, and I don't.
Sometimes I think for some
It's-
people, this is kind of goes for my wife. I say, man, if you're eating that much fiber, you could be adding cars to a traffic jam. Like, what could it do?
Right, and for some people it works. It's not a good thing.
That was the big thing that, and this is off tangent, but
No, it's
when I went to carnivore, I was like, okay, this could really hurt me. This could create this horrible constipation, and I'm going to die. Right? I'm going to have a small bowel obstruction and I'll be admitted to the hospital. No, it didn't happen. Surprise, surprise. But it fixed my other bowel issues where I was really fast, like any sort of fiber. I was the one preaching to
So
my
you're the
patients.
opposite end of the
Yeah,
spectrum.
I was telling them, hey, a salad a day
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, so when I do eat carnivore, I have to do a salad, or I have to
with
do
it.
cabbage, or I have to do I added spaghetti squash, and that seemed to work.
Yeah, I do a lot of
It's
spaghetti
not,
squash.
yeah,
That stuff is mostly water.
and
that's strange.
fiber and stuff. But that's whatever you have to figure it out. But whole foods, once again, you need to eat whole to stop the process.
Stop the stuff with barcodes
Yes,
that comes and it has a half-life of 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, Twinkies will survive the apocalypse.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like you wonder, well, this is such a big industry.
Yeah.
You think, how much preservatives are in this?
Yeah, we could do another podcast on the preservatives.
Preservatives, yeah.
Yeah. So then
So you were
nutritional-
on like a 50%
Yeah.
carbohydrate diet. You're following this, I wouldn't say standard American diet.
No, because we
but
didn't eat out.
And I would say that you definitely, in a lot of these studies, you definitely would be defined as in the, healthy category, like the healthy person confounder. So these people who are eating high fiber diets are not your typical person.
Yeah,
Right?
no.
You're eating like 75, 50 grams of fiber a day. Right. And so when we did these studies that showed people that with a high fiber diet, they were healthier. Well, they're less likely to smoke. They were less likely to be overweight. They were less likely to be sedentary.
Yeah.
So a lot of these studies are kind of confusing because you think, well, if I eat more fiber, well, who eats a lot of fiber? People eat a lot of salads. Well, there's a certain classification type of person that would do that, right?
Yeah. There
You're
is
one.
me.
You're a
Me.
health conscious person.
Yeah.
You're the type of person
Well,
that
I
would
mean-
weigh everything.
Exactly. Well, and I'm a cancer nurse. So, of course,
Yeah.
you want to follow all the guidelines and be an example and,
Right.
lead by example. And
Versus the other person would be sedentary.
Right.
He's smoking, doesn't do much. He's eating all these burgers and french fries and all that crazy
Yeah.
food, which hopefully no one's, I guess people still eat that stuff.
I do once in a while.
Really?
Yeah. I do once in a while. I can't say that I don't.
I have totally convinced myself that has side effects and I can't eat that.
Oh, it does have side effects.
The side effects that I'm just never
The next
willing
day,
to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or later on in the day. But it's
Yeah.
just something that every once a month or once every couple months, I just have a craving.
Yeah. See, as a diabetes educator, that would be the time that somebody would walk in and go, oh, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't tell anybody that, I'm busted, right? Oh, yeah. What
but
are you
I'm
doing?
very
Eating a
open
donut?
and honest about
you
what
are
goes
good.
in my mouth.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's totally good.
But it's important because people have to understand that, and at least I want people to understand that don't beat yourself up over your diet.
Yeah.
Good
point.
You know, just it's your diet. Okay, so you go off and you have that one. I hate it that when people say cheat meal. No, it's that meal that maybe it'll satisfy you, and then for months you'll be happy.
Okay.
You know, you got. I kind of have that. You know,
I know. I'm
hippie-ish.
way more rigid than I should be, and this makes it difficult because come time for birthday cake or something like that. All right, I know that I'm going to have it. All right. I'm probably not going to have breakfast that morning. I'm probably not going to eat lunch. You know, it's kind of like
you're going to fast for 24 hours.
Yeah, I'm getting ready for it, right? It's like but I also realize, kind of like the whole OCD. I was making fun of you, but it's it's for me as well. I get really anxious thinking about it. Like, oh man, I'm going to be in a social atmosphere, in a social setting, and then, is it going to be okay? Are people gonna, I got to set this example. Mm-hmm. So that just makes it. I don't know. I don't
see.
Miss
That's
it.
why I tell people.
It's been so long. I don't miss it.
Yeah, or what we used to say is pregame. We'll eat before we go anywhere.
Eat the good stuff.
Eat the good stuff, like have a steak or.
Mm-hmm. You don't go into a situation hungry knowing that, there's going to be garbage available.
No, or we bring what we're going to eat to a social event.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing is, and it's funny because my mom will say, well, I got something just for you, Kyle. I made this for you. like, is it okay for your diet? There's something wrong with me. I've got some sort of weird condition. So she's all paranoid. Like, do you think Kyle will eat this? I have a little special salad on the side. Like, no, I'm fine. Relax. Don't worry about me. And eating is really taking on a really different atmosphere for me. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it's not a formal meal anymore. It's just the two of us. Oftentimes we're just chomping on steak outside, enjoying a sunset, or we're eating it over the sink, and it's different.
Oh yeah.
Eating has taken on just a totally different, it's almost kind of a afterthought. It's not the focus. It's not the focus of our gatherings. It's not the focus of our life. It's like, we're going to eat. I'm not totally hungry, but if food's here, I'm going to go ahead and eat. Oh, there's good quality food here. Yeah, I'm going to eat more and probably eat less tomorrow. If you look at really how we should be measuring calories and whatnot, it should be over the course of a week. Oh. That would make more sense. And you're weighing yourself once a week, right?
Not like me.
No. Because people get really frustrated because up and down 2 pounds, come on. Yeah. That's a large bowel movement.
Well, no, it's also because I have a lot of edema. So
you keep an eye on fluid status.
On fluid status, yeah.
Yes, that is critical for you. Yeah, you got into a salt patch. What happened there?
Well, not always salt. It's just what my genetics are. Yeah. I have swollen legs. It's just the way it is.
Fat circulation, essentially.
Or it's my, it's my, venous insufficiency.
Right.
So my
circulation.
Veins, right. So my veins don't work as good as anybody, somebody else's.
But what's interesting is that what you're doing makes total sense. And then I've learned this from other pioneers in the area. This one is from Ben Bickman, talking about lymphedema and fasting.
Oh, yeah.
And weighing one leg over another leg. Okay, well, we were able to manage to lose 2 pounds in the leg that was more swollen by doing prolonged fasting and helping with circulation.
Right.
Pretty interesting stuff.
I haven't gotten that far yet, but I'm pretty sure my OCD will kick in.
Eventually.
Yeah. I know.
So this whole thing with the SAD diet, it's really, it's not necessarily anyone's fault, but there was a study showing we need to ingest so much carbohydrates.
Oh yeah.
Your 130 grams or 140 grams per day, right? And they say, you got to get it from dietary sources. Mm-hmm. Well, that tank isn't very big. And so we didn't know essentially how much could you really store, but also it was the brain. The brain is what kind of drove all that. We're the brain requires 130 to 140 grams of glucose per day. Mm-hmm. But we had no idea that we could make it from other sources. And so doing a high fat, low carb diet was going to be, you're going to starve the brain.
Yeah, that was
And
That
in
was
some
one
ways
of
you
the
kind of
things,
do.
yeah.
Yeah. And there's a big fight there in the very beginning. And so when you talk about like, looking at your total grams of carbs per day, I just had them look at how much are you eating in a day? Let's get that down. Let's shoot for 50. Usually after about a week, let's shoot for 50. And then we try to get down and go less than that and less than that. By the time they hit like 50, they're like, I'm not that hungry. Hunger starts slowing down. But then there's also this other thing with electrolytes. Electrolytes become a problem. Have you had any experience with that?
I've had like what they say is the keto flu.
Yeah.
So, but of course you can do, an electrolyte drink, which you can make on your own. You can make from salt and
Bone broth,
potassium
right.
and bone broth. And you can also like do this whole, you can get mag supplement and then.
Right. So yeah, I know in the Verta Health that they do the Magox 400 milligrams 3 times a day. They typically do that for several weeks, if not longer, as long as 2 months. A lot of these people are very low in magnesium. Magnesium deficiency is incredibly common, especially in type 2 diabetics.
Yeah, I thought was interesting.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah,
must be something to do with the soil. That's my own 2 cents on the whole mag thing.
Well.
Yeah. They also have them take thermotabs. So 1 gram of sodium chloride salt and add that to their
I never heard of thermotabs.
Yeah. Thermotabs, yeah. They're like I don't know where exactly they would be. Probably in your supplement section in the pharmacy.
Oh.
Thermotabs are usually if you're sweating a lot.
Oh, okay.
People take this. I've also used Keto Chow electrolyte drops.
Yes.
And you can also do the
have those.
magnesium drops as well.
I have the element
Right.
powder. And then we also follow this guy on YouTube. His name is Cole, I think. Cole. And I call him the snake diet guy. Oh, and he has snake juice, and he gives
is it
you
pickle juice, right?
It's actually like salt, potassium, and you make your own.
Okay.
And there's a ratio, and you can measure it out. Because, I'm a measurer.
Right.
So,
Well, also, I would say this is not a Norton's salt commercial, but Norton's light salt is it Norton's or Morton's? And I can't remember.
It's blue and white. That's all
Blue and white, right. Yeah. It's light, L-I-T, light
and that's
salt.
the lighter blue one.
It's the lighter blue one, yes. And that one has potassium. Potassium chloride and sodium chloride.
You can get the potassium salt. It's no salt.
No
so you
salt.
can buy no salt. It's actually potassium.
Read your labels.
You just read the label.
And,
I'm a label reader too. That's my problem. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, no, I mean, I became obsessed.
I would hope that I'm a label reader as a pharmacist. Wow. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, and then as a nurse, I read every label.
But why do you take the salt?
So you take it because you dump the water, you dump the salt,
Right.
then you get the keto flu, and then you don't feel good.
You don't feel good, and this is why most people quit.
Well,
they get
and
cramps,
then you start to get leg
feeling
cramps.
horrible. They're fatigued. They're tired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and people go, I did the ketogenic diet.
I only had it
for
one
me.
time.
Didn't
I only
work
had
for
it
me.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't work for me, and I'm quitting. And it's not for everybody. But I'm sorry, if you're a Homo sapien, it works because that's how we got here.
Yeah.
Like obviously. We didn't eat 3 square meals. We didn't eat constantly. We didn't graze all throughout the day. So we went periods of time without food. We were fasted.
Right.
Intentionally or unintentionally. Our ketone levels were high.
Right. Well, because we were constantly moving. Because, so I go back in time, hunter-gatherers, you're constantly moving, you're constantly searching, you're looking for food.
You're foraging.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you have to kill something. So, it's not like,
Carbs are seasonal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're not around.
Like berries and fruit trees and stuff like that.
Like it's the middle of winter. Like it's oranges and lemons. I don't know what bok choy apparently is a winter crop. You can help yourself to all the bok choy you want right now. Wouldn't that be just great? That sounds wonderful. But if you were a hunter, this may not be the best time. I know we talked about this earlier today.
Yeah.
But this wouldn't be the best time to be hunting.
No.
The best time to be hunting would be later, right? In the fall, end of summer, fall, because now the animal's fattened up, right? This time of year probably wouldn't be that great. So there's got to be some way of storing food.
Oh, right, because we talked about how they make that. What was it? Oh my God.
Pemmican.
Pemmican
is like it's a meat
fat.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about American Indians, native of Northern America, right? So yeah, they were able to take that meat, which was mostly tallow, so it's mostly saturated fat, right?
I think they get it from above the kidney.
Oh.
That's where the fat comes from.
Yeah, and I think
that's my husband coming through.
Is it, really? Your husband the butcher? Well, no, but like it's interesting. Herbivores and a buffalo is really a ruminant, which is what we want, right? That's the most ideal meat, right? You have cows and sheep and buffalo, but the buffalo, like that's saturated fat. Now, they got 3 different types of fat: saturated, monounsaturated, and polys, right? And so saturated fat is so stable. It doesn't go rancid.
That's really interesting.
So this type of meat, along with this saturated fat, and sometimes they put berries in there, could last anywhere from 1 to 5 years.
Now, do they cook it down? Do they I have to look at that. I have to look that up now. I think they do. I'm
sure that they do.
I think they cooked it
in order
down
to get it to mold.
And they molded it. I believe that's what they did. They cooked it down and then they molded it.
Yeah, this has been going on for tens of thousands of years.
And then they would travel with it.
Yeah, and you could trade for it.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, I'm cold, let's trade furs or whatever, pelts. Yeah, and so you've got this great, it probably was currency, essentially.
I don't know.
I know the Inuit have like this fat thing, this thing that they carry around that's full of this blubber.
Oh, okay.
And they probably know how to get the right type. It probably has everything to do with time of year. Right? So if you got it in the fall, it was higher in saturated fat versus in the springtime it was more, hey, this thing's just getting through the harsh of winter. And so it's probably more polyunsaturated fats, which is not that stable. It goes rancid.
So it goes rancid.
Yeah. And that's why you look at different fats. What's the stability? Right? We don't want these things to get oxidized. That's when they start to spoil. And that's what I really believe that was our primary and probably the most pristine source of fat was saturated fat. And that sounds scary, huh? So many people are like, oh, saturated fat's horrible for you. That stuff will kill you. That clogs your arteries. We got a long ways to go. We got to convince a lot of people that this is totally wrong and that man must have fat. This is your primary fuel source. This is your primary energy source. So doing low carb, healthy fat.
Healthy fat. That's
healthy
what
fat
they coined it as, healthy
high fat. Right. So what kind of percentages are we talking about?
Oh, God.
So
where'd my notes go?
I mean, could you get by with, say, an 80-20 or 70-30, somewhere in that range?
I think that's where it is. I think it's like 70-30.
Right. So
and then you have that, and then you have that 20% of the protein. You always keep the protein.
Protein
at 20%.
Stays the same.
Yeah, it's like a constant. And then you can move the fat carb thing, but
and so, but what LCHF is really 5 to 10% of your total calories is carbohydrates.
Okay.
Right, and so
I was talking grams.
What's that?
I was thinking grams.
Grams. Okay, so
no, it's okay.
So let's say 25% of, let's say, 2,000 calories. So that would be 50 calories.
Yeah.
Correct? Am I doing the math right?
I don't know.
50 calories is probably only, and you divide that by 4, so you're looking at like 15 grams of total carbohydrates for the day. It's pretty little.
Yeah.
It's pretty minor.
Well, and then,
so again, we're under that
you're under
that 25, under that 40, which is kind of your sweet spot. But does it really matter? To me, it's all about the number, right?
Right.
Like, where are you? Oh, well, I'm doing keto. I did keto for a long. Hey, did you ever measure ketones? Did you bother? Right? Oh, I did the ketogenic diet. It didn't work for me. No, tell me what you were. And what's like the nutritional ketosis, right? What is nutritional ketosis? When we look at something, say, this is a Precision Extra. This measures ketones.
Yeah, I have almost the same one. I think I do have that one.
Yeah, so there's all these different devices and ways to measure. So this one here is a Precision Extra. And these come with, you have to buy these strips, and it measured ketones. And I would recommend always measuring in the morning time at the same time each day. And our goal for that is 0.5 to 3.
Okay.
At least.
Yeah.
You can go even if you were fasted for a long period of time.
Yeah, I've heard if you go up to 8 is dangerous. So you should start eating something to decrease your ketones. And then, but 0.5 is when you start to become in ketosis.
Right.
I think when I was fasted, and I was doing 48 to 72, I was 3.8, I think is where I got up.
You showed me some amazing numbers.
Yeah.
love to have those numbers. I can't get there. I think the most I've gotten is 0.7 on like a 36-hour fast.
But you
struggle.
You have like no fat.
I don't, but I would say that typically your typical person within 12 hours is at 0.5. So by morning time, your ketones are already ramped up.
Maybe.
Depending on fat mass
Right.
and what you got going on.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And what did you eat
previously
when you went to bed?
And that's kind of what we do with the Freestyle Libre and measuring what glucose may have, what food spiked your glucose to kick you out of ketosis. This takes all the investigation work.
I think so. Yeah. I like what you say about that. You like to see the whole movie.
I like to see versus just photographs, which is
just
worthless.
A finger prick in time. That's it.
and then you also see with the Freestyle Libre, with the continuous glucose monitor, you see what the normal circadian rhythm is. So oftentimes people have a spike in cortisol and glucagons and epinephrine, which increases their blood sugar, okay, in the morning. And then you're going to sample it and say, this is my fasting glucose? Not really. For some people, that's the highest point of the whole day. And we're going to measure that and take a photograph of that and go, hey, this is my lowest sugar. Probably not. For many people, it's not. Like someone like you, your fluctuation is like under 10%. You're not bouncing at all.
No, not when I'm eating. Not when I'm eating very low carb. I stay probably under 90, and then I think my lowest point was in 50s, 52 or 53 or something like that, and that was at night. Yeah,
you were humming in the red. 40s and 50s all night, and it's amazing because we didn't know that. If you're in the hospital and you pull in 40s and 50s, you're getting wheeled in the ICU and they're pumping you full of sugar, dextrose, right? It would be dangerous.
Yeah, but I don't. It's
but
like,
didn't happen right away.
No,
and we should probably back up and say really there's an induction period here.
Yeah, there is.
The kidneys are no longer holding on to water. They're no longer holding on to sodium.
So when you start to decrease your carbs, this is what happens, right? Okay.
Right. So you drop your carbohydrates, you get under that 50 gram mark. You see that there's a lot of diuresis. So you're peeing like crazy. Okay. Right. And with water goes sodium, and that's why we do the salt. Right. So we're supplementing salt because of the change in the effect of insulin on the kidneys. Okay. So indirectly, insulin causes a sodium retention, so a water retention. And for a lot of people, they lose an inch in the waist, and it's all fluids. And that's awesome. Let's not downplay that. That's fantastic. That's step number one as you go through the next couple of weeks, because it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get into this adaptation, this fat adaptation. And a lot of the studies that didn't really give low carb a fair shake didn't wait the full couple of weeks because it takes a lot of enzymes. It takes a lot of machinery to make the fat burner go. Right? And
yeah, it does.
And a lot of it is, and a lot of people back away almost right away because they're like, so hungry, or my brain just, I felt so fatigued, felt horrible. And that's really the brain going from high carbohydrate burning brain, right? So let's say 80% carbs, 20% ketones. Oh, yeah. Right? Because the brain's burning ketones, to a 80% ketones and 20% glucose, or whatever that ratio is going to be.
It's flipping.
Right. It's flipping it, and the brain doesn't like it. So people will have symptoms of hypoglycemia, low blood sugars. At like a blood sugar of 100, which is normal. If you're a type 2 diabetic and I drop you from 300 to 100, the brain is not going to be happy with you.
Yeah, no.
You're going to fight. So it takes a couple of weeks, and once you get into that zone, then blood sugar starts normalizing, ketone levels start ramping up, you start feeling better, you have more energy. It takes a little bit. You got to get through that hump. Now, you're sitting here going, it's easy, right?
Well, no, I mean, it wasn't too bad. No. Because what I did first was I did what was recommended, and I started decreasing my carbs, became fat adapted, and then started fasting.
So yours is kind of a gradual.
So it was gradual. Mine was very gradual, and then I didn't feel the my brain shift too much.
So almost unnoticeable.
Yeah.
I've had some people where they're they're going to fast right
I did it a few years ago, and it wasn't good.
No. You may have done it too abruptly or something.
Oh, I probably, because that's how I am. I'm an all or nothing kind of person.
Yeah, but we didn't have who was measuring ketones, right?
No, I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
All I did was stop eating.
Oh my gosh.
Carbs.
You just stopped eating carbs. Well, I have other ways of measuring if you're fat adapted. So we have the Freestyle Libre. We have that Precision Extra, which I would recommend people get it. If you can't do the Freestyle Libre, there's other devices as well that tells you whether or not
and the Freestyle Libre, your doctor has to prescribe it.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. And then there's also another one, but it just depends.
Dexcom.
Dexcom.
G6
right.
or
And it
G7,
depends on what your insurance will pay for.
Right.
And then what conversation you have with your physician.
Yeah. And I would also say, hey, just pay for it. You don't need to do it constantly unless you become a little obsessed with it, because some people do. I know some people don't want to go a day without it because they think that they're going to fall off the wagon.
But it keeps you accountable.
Yeah,
you know,
it does, because if somebody's watching your sugars,
because think about it. You take that off, nobody's watching your sugars. You can eat whatever you want,
and you don't have to explain anything.
Right? Exactly.
But I mean, people do that anyways. You know, I'll go look at their blood sugars and I'll just see this big spike, no scan, no comment. Like, okay, what was this? what did you do here?
Unless you're like me, scanning it all the
time,
sticking stuff in there like, hey, I had this and I had that and I did this. And
you know what I haven't noticed is anyone lying about it. That's what's funny. It's like, oh yeah, I had a salad. Oh no, you didn't. Like, what the heck? Or you had a salad and you were really stressed and being chased by a bear or something, you know?
Right. No.
So there's also another device called the Lumen, and this one is a way of measuring if you're burning fat or not. And this measures your carbon dioxide that you're giving off versus your oxygen. So it's kind of like respiratory quotient. That's in the weeds, but it's kind of measures whether or not you're blowing off. What you blow off determines whether or not you're burning fat.
Okay.
Fat or carbohydrates. So that's that one. And then there's Biosense. So we have two different types of ketones. So we have beta-hydroxybutyrate as well as we have it's acetone. So acetone is given off as a volatile gas through your breath as well as your urine. And we measure BHB, beta-hydroxybutyrate, through the Precision Extra. But we measure acetone breath-wise, and we can measure that with the Biosense. So this is another way, if you don't like sticking yourself, you can do this instead. I'll tell you, it takes forever for this thing to warm up. I have no idea why, but it takes like a minute. I kind of want to play with this when I'm doing,
That's 1 minute isn't forever.
No, I think it's a couple minutes. I'm underestimating it. But so there's all these different devices, and I anticipate we'll see more in the future.
Oh yeah.
What other ways can we measure the fact that you're fat adapted or not, right?
Well, I'm pretty sure iWatch will.
What's that? For some sort of sweat, kind of measure the amount of ketones in your sweat. Yeah, so this is kind of like, it's not all the rage, but this works. Not kind of, this really works.
Well, it gives you the information to tell you what your body's doing.
Right.
And then you can decide, you know, hey, I'm going to eat this or I'm going to eat that. I'm going to figure out where my body likes, like where my carb is or where my protein. I know we have to, you know, eat protein a certain amount. And then to also the fat, how much fat.
Right. And then what
because you have to be careful with the fat, because then you could also gain weight with that.
Yeah, you can overdo your calories.
Yeah.
Right? Total calories.
Well, you know, that happens.
Yeah, but I
don't know if it's totally true, like the 3,600 equals 1 pound of weight gain. Remember
that was pulled out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm like, where did that come from? I don't even know. They don't even talk about it.
There is no reference for that. Somebody just, 3,500 calories is a pound of fat, you know. We want to decrease fat mass, bottom line. And really, ketones is that physical evidence that you're actually burning fat. We can see these little dudes zipping around, and these guys we're just kind of hitting the tip of the iceberg on what exactly ketones do for us, right? What is their functionality within the body? Like, we have to switch modes from, hey, this is a demon, this causes DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, versus this is really helpful.
Yeah, well, I mean, our bodies do run on ketones.
Yeah, and it's amazing that we've also correlated it with the brain. That's probably the most important thing, is people are burning glucose as their primary fuel source for the brain instead of ketones. The brain never becomes ketone resistant. It can become basically insulin resistant and resistant to glucose absorption, which means that the brain has no energy and it starts shrinking.
Right. And
Right?
well, then they've done some research.
This is dementia. This is the cause
right,
of dementia.
Dementia,
Right here.
Alzheimer's. They've done research.
Yeah.
What's our favorite?
Epilepsy. Epilepsy. Back in the
epilepsy.
day, we would put somebody who has epilepsy into a room and let them fast. And
Yeah.
it's gone. Right? Burning ketones is a way better fuel. Not to mention you can eat ketones. Like there's keto esters that you can buy. They're not cheap, but you can mix those up in a drink and give those to people and see if it changes their dementia or their Parkinson's and see if they all of a sudden improve. Some people will improve.
Well, I mean, changing your diet is free.
Yeah. Fasting is so cheap.
It's free. Yeah.
What's in your fridge? Nothing. Right?
Well, you have to have, I mean, after a few days, there's so much, there's so much fasting that you can do. Eventually.
Right. But do it, I think it's fairly safe.
Right. It is. And then
the electrolytes become an issue.
Right.
For the most part.
Now, if you are diabetic and you want to fast, you should have a conversation with your doctor.
Absolutely.
So that way, because your blood sugars will decrease.
Right.
You're
If you're
on
on
a
medications,
medication.
yeah.
You definitely
Absolutely.
need to have some conversations.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. Because you don't want to get in trouble.
All right. What else did you get from the book? You got some cool stuff. You got tons of notes and
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
you even wrote down glucose, C6H12.
Oh, yeah. Because, I'm like
wow,
that.
what a nerd.
Yeah.
I haven't
and
seen
then
that.
everything, because it's important. Okay, so
I love it.
I read package inserts because I'm a
Yeah, I got it.
yeah. Some of the nurses I used to train used to call me Geek Squad because
Okay.
I put
Can you
down
come
what
out
it
and
is.
fix my TV?
No. No, I just put what it does, and then all the. Let's see.
I think they might have mentioned in this book, since we were talking about the brain.
Yeah.
They had individuals, healthy men, and they fasted them for a month. Remember that?
Yes.
They fasted them for a month, and you could never do this study.
But you can
nowadays.
never do it again.
Right, because what did they do?
Oh my gosh. So they fasted them and they wanted to see how low their blood sugars would go. And then they actually started infusing them with insulin.
Yeah.
And
their average blood sugar was 25.
it was crazy what they got
Which
their
would-
blood
which would
sugars
kill
down.
somebody.
But they were in ketosis. And
Yeah.
what was very interesting about that study is the men didn't feel it.
They didn't feel it.
They didn't feel
Actually, one guy went all the way down to 9
I
milligrams per
Oh,
deciliter.
because I thought 20.
Like most people are zipping
once,
around at
but
100.
yeah.
Yeah, the average was 25. Yeah, these guys. But you couldn't do that at the beginning of the study. You had to wait for the whole month for the brain to go, hey, ketones is my primary fuel source, right? We're going to go ahead and basically with insulin, lower the glucose even lower,
Yeah.
right? And still no mental side effects, no coma.
And they didn't like collapse. They didn't feel anything.
Brain is totally fat adapted. The body was totally fat
But I
adapted.
think that's the key. You have to become fat adapted.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say, I know some patients say, man, I feel like I drank a pot of coffee because they have a lot more energy, a lot better cognitive function. And I always go back to like, this is how we lived. We didn't always eat. We didn't eat three meals a day. We didn't eat constantly. We were eating this pelican stuff. This peminin. I can't remember.
Peminin. I like pelican. That's hilarious. It's a bird.
But also, there's another example of people along the Northwest who were eating this very oily fish.
Yeah.
That would come in and it would fill all the inlets, and basically their culture was dependent upon this fish showing up every year, that they could make candles with it. They could melt it down.
Starts with an O.
Olation. I think I'm saying that right. I'm not ultra positive on that one, but
Yeah. Right here. Oh, it's OOLICHAN.
right, yeah.
I slaughter words, so I'm just not going to say
You're
it.
fine. What else?
Well, they all talked about fear of fat. I think that's one, especially
don't fear fat.
nowadays. Yeah. People are so afraid to eat fat. And what do we talk about when we say eat fat? So we're talking about, fat on meat, avocados,
red meat, full
And-
fat dairy, right?
yes, nuts.
Believe it or not, it's the dairy that's loaded with saturated fat. You demonize the steak and the red meat when in actual reality, no. The
Yeah.
cheese, the whole milk, that kind of stuff has a lot more saturated fat than the red meat. But we want to blame the cow.
Well, yes, and then those wonderful studies that come out about how, it
The
causes
pollution?
cancer and,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I
that's-
mean, everything.
That's the healthy confounder, like the healthy person confounder, where those people actually were more likely to be smokers, higher BMI,
Right.
BMI,
Well,
older
and they
people.
didn't look at that. They only looked at what food they were eating.
Yeah.
And I believe it was a retrospective analysis. And they didn't look at their whole lifestyle.
Right.
That you can't put a human in a cage and say, okay, we're just going to do this.
Right.
And then figure out over a few years
It
how
just-
it's going to affect you.
It simply doesn't make sense to say we need to be nothing but vegetable matter. I'm sorry, but the nutrient content of our vegetables
Oh,
and our
no.
plant
Yeah.
is not what it used to be.
No.
I mean, even like wheat is like 30% less protein now than what it did 100 years ago.
Right.
Okay. And what's on that soil? What are we putting back into that soil? I want people to understand that orchards and vineyards and all this crops and all these farming should be as foreign and unnatural as, say, windmills and solar farms. That's not normal. That's not how that soil was. Okay, when you crop and when you do this monocropping, and you are literally just taking all the nutrients
Well,
out of the
you're
soil.
leaching. Yeah.
You're leaching it.
Yeah.
It takes 100 years for that soil to come back to normal, and not to mention how do you replenish that soil with fertilizer from what, right? From the cow. I think
Yes,
so.
from our cows.
From our cow that eats 80% of what it eats is what we can't eat. I think that's recycling. I think that's what I would love to be driving down I-5 and get rid of the orchards, get rid of that plant matter that is so nutrient deficient, and let's get the soil back to the way it used to be. I want to see grasslands. I want to see a lot of cows. I want people to be more grateful for the cow instead of thinking that it's the cause of our pollution, when it's recycling that carbon like every 10 years, right? Versus this monocropping. It's that, I think, is the reason why we have such horrible magnesium, potassium deficiencies in our foods.
We have a lot of deficiencies.
Yeah, we have
That's
tons,
just-
and you want to blame the cow. It's bothersome to me.
That's what the missing micronutrients. That's one of the things that they had talked
Right,
about.
we're not replenishing, and now we have worldwide a significant problem with fertilizers. Like, we don't have enough. How are you going to feed China? What is China going to do without that raw material of the fertilizer? What are you going to grow? Right? You're just going to grow. I mean, you can grow anything in garbage soil, but not to mention all these vegetables that we have now in the grocery store is not what it was, say, 100 years ago. It's totally different. It's been GMO'd, and now I can go in the middle of winter and get asparagus. Really? I can get anything I want. Really? I can go get watermelon. That's not normal.
We should go back to eating seasonal. Like, I remember eating seasonal when I was younger. I
Yeah.
don't remember everything being available all the time.
Right. It was our generation that got all, like, as the garbage food became more and more available, the TV dinners, and I mean, it was a great way of shipping stuff and having a super long half-life, but it at the cost of real food, right? Real food
Yeah.
doesn't have barcodes on it. It's not something you shop the perimeter of the store, right?
Yeah, that's what we do. We shop the perimeter.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. What other notes do you have? Let's see.
Okay.
So we talked. Oh, we talked about that.
One question that comes up, a couple of issues that people have with the ketogenic diet. One of which they go, oh man, I don't have a gallbladder. I think, well, it doesn't do any. That doesn't. It's just the bladder. What's a bladder? It just stores bile acids. Your liver is going to make all the bile salts that you need to absorb fat. So not having a gallbladder, which a lot of people don't have a gallbladder. more and more people are getting a cholecystectomy because they're doing a low-fat diet, because you need bile salts to absorb the fat in the first place. It emulsifies the fat, basically takes the fat and makes it into a solution so that you could then absorb it. So when you do a low-fat diet, expect your gallbladder to go away because you don't have a need for it. It doesn't need to squirt into the GI tract, into your intestines.
So it constantly builds up, and that's the problem.
It builds up in the stones. It becomes this sludgy. There's no need for it if you're on a low-fat diet. But when we get rid of it, people go, "Oh, well, I'll have diarrhea if I eat fat." No, you will do just fine. Eat fat. Don't fear the fat. Keep eating the fat. You'll make plenty of bile salts to be able to absorb it, right? And this is also our body's way of handling cholesterol. We need cholesterol. It's important, right? You have to have it. You will die without it. The body has a way of recycling that cholesterol. So you need if you have too much cholesterol, you poop it out. And that comes in with bile salts. If the liver goes, "Hey, I've got too much cholesterol here, I'm going to dump it into the GI tract and you're going to get rid of it." Right? It's a finite amount. What you eat when it comes to cholesterol really doesn't impact most of your cholesterol inside the body. The body will make it on its own. 85% of it is what your body makes. Only 15% of what you absorb. So it's vitally important to eat fat. If you want to save your gallbladder, eat more fat. And if you happen to have one, still, right? I don't see too many people that
I still have a gallbladder.
Do you? Oh, yeah. Well, good for you. Like all my siblings are like, "Oh, you don't need that. Yeah, it's gone." Really? This is what the food pyramid creates. This low-fat diet where there's no need for bile salts.
Not a food pyramid.
No, it's my plate. My plate. Yeah, don't get me started on my plate. Hey, do we want to talk about the Tokelauans?
Yeah, let's talk about the Tokelauans.
Tokelauans. They're kind of an interesting group. They're kind of like these Aboriginal group of people, and we see this all throughout history, is that Aboriginal people...
Because this is the first I've ever heard of them.
Oh, the Tokelauans. Yeah, the Tokelauans it's an island near Samoa, like north of Samoa. And the island, these people mostly ate coconut and fish. Now, coconut is loaded in saturated fat. It's like 95% saturated fat. And they eat fish. There's no carbohydrates really in that diet. Very little to none. And these people didn't have any problems. But the second that you, I think it was in 68, 70, something like that, they offer these people, since I think they got devastated with a hurricane or something, or would that be a typhoon? I don't know. So anyways, they allowed them citizenship and allowed them and helped move them to New Zealand. So when they moved into New Zealand, they found that the same type of person, not, that are genetically the same as those that got moved to New Zealand, right? That they found those that moved to New Zealand have a much higher incidence of diabetes. Like it doubled, right? Hypertension doubled, obesity doubled. These weren't people, and you can't go, "Oh, well, they were sedentary once they moved to New Zealand." Well, they didn't get all the white collar jobs, right? They had the difficult jobs.
Yeah.
They were working and they were moving a lot, and they still had this huge increase in disease because in New Zealand at that time, obviously, they had more of a Western diet influence.
What year did they get moved?
I want to say it was 68 or 70.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. 41. It was in one year that they offered them 71.
Okay.
Half of the Tokelauans lived on the New Zealand mainland.
Oh, yeah, we already had fast food nation going on then.
Yeah, by 71, it was starting to build. And definitely their sugar, flour, and rice increased, right? That was a big part of it.
They didn't have that part of their diet before.
And there was these colony physicians from England that were going all over the world, and they were looking at different people. And you got people from Africa, and when you put them in this society, they all of a sudden have a huge increase in blood pressure, since that's what they could measure back then. They couldn't measure a heck of a lot, right? And size, right? They started getting bigger. And diabetes started increasing. So this is a great example of, it's not genetics, people. It's the environment. When you increase the amount of carbohydrates in their environment, we have all these diseases of Western civilization. And I joke around and say, hey, the only thing that should be killing us infectious disease, and accidents. Everything else is man-made. It's all artificial. We did it to ourselves. We need to take responsibility and really just turn this around. And that's what I think that this is all about. This is all about awareness. Mm-hmm. This is all about, hey, there's an alternative out there that works, because I can tell you from my own personal experience, the best diet is going to be the diet that kills hunger, right?
Yes.
How hungry are you? You have to think about it.
I do.
Yeah, exactly. You pause, therefore it's not on your mind, right?
I know, I'm not hungry.
Right, because that's the best diet. And when we talk about Finney and Volek here, the creators of basically of Virta Health, mm-hmm. you still had 78% of the people after 2 years were still doing the ketogenic diet. These people are still measuring ketones.
I think now they did a 2 and 5 year, right?
They did a 2 and a 5 years. So it dropped off a little bit after 5 years, but it's about that accountability, right? Everyone wants to go back because you're exposed to all this. But I still think any diet that's 78% of the people are still following after 2 years must be pretty easy. And there's another movie, Fat Fiction. I would recommend that movie, Fat Fiction. And that is all about people doing the Freestyle Libre, the sensors. Oh. They did it for 2 weeks. First week was the high carb, and they were eating like crazy. Free for all. And this is what I do with my patients as well, which is really fun, because go ahead, just go have a good time, eat whatever you want, learn from your foods. And then the second week, let's get serious. And so the second week in this particular movie, great people in this movie, their hunger went away. They found it so much easier that they almost had difficulties keeping up with the same number of calories they had the week before when they were doing high carb. They're like, man, I don't think I can handle eating all that. But you just almost automatically, and this is kind of like any animal, mm-hmm. you shouldn't be concerned about how much you're eating. It should just naturally happen. You don't force feed your dog.
No.
It should be a very normal process. And that hunger is basically just dictated by your needs. You got more needs, you're going to be hungrier, right? You have less needs, you're not going to eat as much. It should be a very natural thing. So, thank you for joining us on the Unscripted Pharmacist. This has been fun.
Oh yeah,
I can't wait to get even deeper in this book. This is like the Bible for low carb living. These are some amazing pioneers that did a lot of work and
still are doing a lot of work.
And inspire the heck out of us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would recommend, think about getting maybe a way of measuring the book as well, but also a way of measuring your ketones. The Precision Extra is not super expensive, worthwhile. Again, we want to encourage everyone to try this as an alternative to the diet that you're on. Just do it right, do it safely, and get a hold of your doctor and let them know what you're doing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You've been listening to the Unscripted Pharmacist Podcast with Kyle Rootsaert and Lenora Casey. Please like our program by clicking on the thumbs up button. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion, please jot us a note in the comments section. And be sure to subscribe to the Unscripted Pharmacist Podcast. Produced by Chris Stevenson, recorded at the studios of Calaveras Community Television. Thanks for listening.